providers. Can you please go to the next question?
Okay. So what is it about Astound that's making you want to change to them?
I'm declining to state. Can you please go to the next question so we can cancel our service?
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out here what it is about Comcast service that you're not liking, that you're not wanting to keep. I mean, why is it that you don't want to keep that service?
This phone call is a really, actually amazing representative example of why I don't want to stay with Comcast. So can you please cancel our service?
Go, go, go! Bienvenidos, cord killers. Our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you can watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on any device you please, and cancel when you want to. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and holy cow, did our Twitter feeds, did our emails, did everything blow up this week? The whole world was like, I found your opening video or audio. You didn't miss anything for those of you who are audio only, because that's a 10 minutes of torture recorded by Ryan Block. Apparently, Veronica Belmont was the one trying to cancel, and at some point it just got so frustrating she handed the phone over to Ryan, who recorded it, and it's amazing because this is in every way exactly my experience with Time Warner. I did the same thing except I was live tweeting instead.
I want to say up front, don't get too mad at that guy. I mean, this is an old story by now, but we had to address it. He was doing exactly what Comcast trained him to do, even though Comcast has said, no, he went over the line. Joining us today is just totally coincidentally, the very same Veronica Belmont.
Hello, Veronica!
Is that totally coincidentally?
Well, I mean, unless this was all like a ruse and you paid an actor to pretend to be that guy. Hey,
well, all of this happened just so I could be asked on the show.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about what happened in the phantom 10 minutes beforehand, because obviously he didn't just start being a jerk at the end. He was doing it to begin with. What did we miss?
Yeah, so that's something that even though we wrote about that in the SoundCloud post that most people saw initially, a lot of people did miss the explanation as to what happened beforehand. And yeah, so I called up. We recently moved, and I was just needing to cancel the Comcast service at the previous apartment. We had already signed up for Astound here at the new place, so it wasn't an option to move the Comcast. We had no desire to move the Comcast, and I said that to him up front, actually. I was like, listen, I just need to cancel the service. We already have new service. I don't really want to get into a back and forth, because he had already started let me put you through to our unit that will move and transfer your service over. And I was like, no need to do that. I don't want to get into a back and forth. I just need to cancel the service. And then it kind of started into that, well, why? Why do you want to cancel the service? Because I'm asking you to, because we already have new service. Why do you want to switch to Astound? And it started feeling like, okay, this is going to be a conversation that is going to be a little bit more difficult than I initially anticipated. So yeah, it kind of went on like that for the next 10 minutes. I was getting increasingly frustrated, both audibly and also visually. And I just finally kind of shoved the phone over to Ryan. I was like, I can't deal with this guy anymore. I need you to kind of shut this down.
Yeah, that's the weird part, is that, and in so many ways, this was exactly my experience, because everything full stop.
Oh, wow, really? Yeah, so the guy was always super nice. I mean, like you said in the beginning, of appropriateness, but at the end of the day, he was running the company script. And
I feel like he was doing what they trained him to do really well.
Yeah,
it's symptomatic of a larger issue, I think, that we're seeing across, cable companies and phone companies, and especially as we move towards this, this kind of thing is only going to get worse, because they're going to have less incentive to try to keep you. You know what I mean?
It's almost
just, make something up. And I'm like, we shouldn't have to make something up. I mean, I think we were just looking for a resolution, and we were as confused as to why this was still going on.
I canceled DirecTV at one point. Well, I wasn't canceling DirecTV. I was somewhere, Well,
I'll tell you what, you may not be a fan of sports ball, but you know what I am a fan of?
What are you a fan of?
Our primary target.
If they're a cable company, get a compulsory license under Section 111 of the allowed to get a compulsory license under the 1992 Cable Act. But to get our retransmission consent, you have to carry ESPN, ESPN7. That is the current definition of MPVD. They say internet companies cannot be considered MPVDs. So under that FCC ruling from 2012, The copyright office.
You are clearly not a car. Get the hell out of my line.
You're a self-driving car, and those are different. That's a different license altogether.
It's okay. So the thing is to be honest, I think the regulations over the self-driving car set of laws written specifically for it, whereas poor Aereo is going to have to out of their way to create a Rube Goldbergian system to comply with the law, and then they've been told at the top and at the bottom that nope, you're not this, no, you're not that.
And it's not a very big chance, but I'm saying there's a chance, is that Aereo could convince a judge to say, we disagree with the Copyright Office and the FCC because those aren't laws, those are guidelines, and we think you do qualify for Section 111 license, but that you, because you're not a cable company, don't fall under the retransmission consent propagation. If they could get a judge to do that, they would at least have a way forward. But that's going back to the Supreme Court as well.
I mean, where's your money on this, Veronica? Do you feel like there's any chance for Aereo? Is there some other play they should have made? I mean, it just sounds like they're just getting hammered from all sides.
Yeah, I think I don't think that it's very likely that they'll be able to continue as they currently exist. I mean, didn't we kind of see something similar to this in the article, the IVTV ruling?
Yeah,
was that kind of similar?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, IVTV was similar to Aereo, but didn't have geographical restrictions, which is why the judge, through their compulsory license play out of court, they're like, yeah, but you're taking New York signals and broadcasting them in Seattle, and that was definitely not foreseen under this law.
I mean, here's the biggest problem with the way that the U.S. government is handling this is that once you as a consumer or the general populace genuinely feel like there is no way to comply with the law, it short circuits everything. And I gotta feel like the big winner is piracy here. Like I feel like by taking away a legal alternative that they're just encouraging people to take stuff offshore.
Well, what's really interesting is when the FCC said in 2012, only MPVDs qualify for the compulsory license, for the retransmission consent, for this whole ball of wax, it was Google's and Facebook's who said, yes, that's right. It was broadcasters like CBS going, actually, we'd be fine with that. We'd be fine with letting internet be a cable companies because people who do YouTube, Google, people who do Daily Motion, people who do video on the internet don't want to fall under all the other regulations that cable systems fall under as MPVDs. So there's another edge to that sword.
Can I ask a question? So I'm curious, and I haven't been following this as closely as I probably should have, so pardon me if this question has already been broached in previous episodes. How is this different or similar to like Slingbox, for example?
Oh, well, that's the whole thing is that they built the entire thing. Their whole system is basically combining an over-the-air antenna, not at your house, combining that with a Slingbox and a TiVo. Basically, if everything in Aereo were at your house, then everyone agrees it would be fine. That's why they built it this way, is to comply with existing precedented law. But because it's off-site, basically the Supreme Court was like, I don't know, seems weird. I say no.
Also, it's the subject of our secondary target.
Oh, hello. Secondary target.
So the narrow definition doesn't work in Aereo's favor, but it does work in Dish's. Remember, the Copyright Office is like, nope, this is a narrow definition. You're an internet. Nope, can't do it. Fox is suing Dish over the Sling thing, making exactly the argument that you asked about, Veronica, saying, hey, how is this different? If Aereo's not legal, it can't be legal for Sling to work inside the Dish hopper. And so you have to give us a preliminary injunction. Dish engages in virtually identical conduct to Aereo when it streams Fox programming to Dish subscribers over the internet, albeit also in violation of an express contractual prohibition. And they're making the same arguments that Aereo did.
Do you think that they're going to regret the Aereo decision as they realize the implication of all the things that they're also making illegal by precedent?
I don't think so in this particular case, because what's happening here is they're like, ooh, here's an extra weapon. And the judge is going, no, you can't use that weapon. They're like, well, that's a weapon we didn't have before anyway. So the fact that it doesn't work doesn't seem to hurt their case. But a judge found that Fox's claim that it would be irreparably harmed without an immediate block to Hopper was not credible. One of the judges in the Hopper case noted that in the Supreme Court's Aereo decision, the justices outlined numerous caveats, saying that the decision applied narrowly to Aereo, implying that it wouldn't apply to a company like Dish. So
man, I don't like that. I don't like any of that. It seems like laws should apply to everyone. It doesn't seem like if it's wrong, then point to exactly why it's wrong.
Well,
Don't just say it's
that is
wrong
what the Supreme Court's
case.
doing. They're saying if you have an array of antennas and rebroadcast it over the internet like Aereo, that's illegal. We're not saying that if you have a machine in someone's house that transmits them to them privately. They're not ruling on that.
Yeah, wait. So you're saying, Brian, that there should just be big blanket laws with no like specificities inside of them to separate things out?
No, what I'm saying is that they should be consistent laws. And the problem here is that Aereo went out of its way to build its entire system on previous it was like the first legal precedent based telecom basically or cable system, where it's like everything they did, they built on the fact that well, this is legal and this is legal and this is legal, so we should be able to combine these three and make a service that does this general thing that people seem to want. And then they failed, and now the problem that I have is that the Supreme Court first of all, I think they were wrong. I think that they just kind of shrugged and said, well, this feels icky, so therefore it must be wrong. And it's like that's not the case. It's either, if it's legal for everyone else, it should be legal for them. And the fact that they're holding up the law for the Dish case on the technicality of where crap is placed is dumb to me.
Well, let's back up just a second, because what the judges said was, you are not being irreparably harmed by the hopper, and therefore we're not going to give a preliminary injunction. We're not going to tell Dish they have to stop selling the hopper before the court case happens. The court case is going to happen January 13th, 2015. At that point, the judges may say, all right, we've heard the arguments and we think hopper is illegal, but this indicates, when he says that's a narrow decision, where they're tending to think. And I think it's perfectly valid to say what the Supreme Court said was this system is a public performance. That doesn't imply that the Dish system, which does work differently, is also a public performance. And I think that's good that they're not jumping to that conclusion.
Okay, sure. I mean, to be honest, like I'm so mad that I would rather.
You want to burn everything down, just knock it all down, just kill it.
I mean,
burn it
pretty
down,
much, to
burn
be
it
honest,
all.
like if the Supreme Court says that Aereo is wrong and these guys are doing essentially what Aereo does, then set fire to the whole thing. Go ahead and make it all illegal, make it shut down, to get us to the point where the people are so angry we actually rewrite the laws. That's what I want. I mean, I'm in favor of pitchforks on everything basically, and it seems like by saying in this weird inconsistent ruling that that the Supreme Court says this, but this lower court says that this other thing that's essentially the same thing is okay or whatever. I just feel like
that's where I differ, is that it's not essentially the same thing, because one of the things that lost the case for Aereo was the fact that you didn't have any equipment in your house. And what Dish is pointing out is, hey, this is equipment that somebody is, sure, they're renting it from us, but it's actually in their house. It's not an array of antennas.
Again, like on the specific ruling, yes, you're 100%. But in general, it's like, I just want to see people pissed off and in the street. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Yeah,
honestly.
Just in general.
So
maybe we're not making enough money off Patreon, and they could just be pissed off and in the street.
Gosh,
for that.
hold on, let me check. Let me do a little bit of science. I don't know. Looks to me like we have 1,910 patrons.
If each one of them took to the streets,
that would be almost 2,000 people on the streets. They would be overwhelmed. They'd have to call the police.
A third of the population of my hometown on the streets.
Yeah, man, dude, this is what been the most exciting thing of my 2014 is watching spontaneously out of nowhere this uprising of people who want to support a completely independent podcast like Cord Killers, where we don't have a dog in the fight, we don't owe anyone a dime. We can say things to Aereo and about Aereo, not that Aereo would have ever
or
been
the
a
broadcast
sponsor.
networks or Slingbox or
Any
Dish.
of that stuff.
We're not going to be, CBS isn't going to come to us and go, no, you can't give the Dish hopper the best of CES.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, that's right. Because that happened. CNET had to rescind stuff because they're corporate overlords, CBS. But we don't have that problem, and it's because of you guys. Thank you so much to everybody who donates, even if it's a nickel here or there. Patreon.com/cordkillers. That's patreon.com/cordkillers. Thanks, guys.
And our next segment is called Signals Intelligence. I'll explain why in a moment.
Is it because the signals are intelligent?
It is.
Oh, well then.
Now,
should I give it a spoiler alert there?
It's kind of explained now.
Yeah,
but
all right.
What the segment is about streaming services and news relating to them. Netflix has been testing a private viewing mode. They call it privacy mode, so that if you're watching something you don't want to affect your recommendations, you don't want it to show up in your history, maybe you have a guest over and you're like, yeah, sure, you can watch My Little Pony all you want, but do it in privacy mode because I don't want it cluttering up my thing. I'm not going to have a problem with that. Or maybe you're the host of FSL Tonight and you need to watch My Little Pony, which is why I really thought of that example. You can do this. Now, not everybody's got this yet, Brian, but it's out there.
I think this is great. And to be honest, when I first heard of the idea of private mode browsing or whatever, there's that immediate knee-jerk like, oh, I get it. Gonna go to a little BDSM pornography site, are we? And you don't want to affect your stuff. But I'm astonished at how often I switch over to an incognito mode browser for innocuous things. Like, for example, let's say I got a friend who has psoriasis. I now am smart enough to never search WebMD in anything but incognito mode because I want to understand what psoriasis is. So I jump in and I look it up, and it's like if you do that on your regular browser, freaking every ad from then on is like,
you know what I've started noticing
itchy
recently?
Psoriasis? We can fix it. I'm like, ah.
So we think now that Amazon at least is tracking, is doing cookies via IP now instead of your for the whole house. Because if Ryan searches for something, like we were looking up like kitchen oven mitts on his computer, and then we started seeing oven mitt ads on my computer.
Ooh.
Have you guys ever seen that happen?
In fact, when I wanted to surprise Bonnie for her 40th birthday with a ski trip to Snowbird, I had to do everything through incognito browsers because otherwise it was going to be all like day passes at Snowbird, only $35.
Like, why am I getting on? Every ad I got after I moved into this house was for Pepperdine University because Eileen's friend works at Pepperdine University, and I had looked it up to see how to get there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, so it makes sense. I think this idea, and to be honest, I can't believe that Amazon has not already offered a incognito purchasing mode.
Anyway, we're talking about Chrome, and this is totally different.
Well, no. But we are talking about the same thing in that there are things you want to experience and learn that you don't want on the record to shape the way people treat you from then on. And in that regard, Netflix is smart. I would never have thought to do this on Netflix, but I personally set my kids up with their own account on the living room Xbox, so they only see their kids' stuff. It used to be, before they had the separate accounts, that they would get, like, I watched the documentary, This Film Is Not Yet Rated, and the movie poster is a naked chick's butt with the letter R branded on it. And the kids just saw it over and over and over again because it was suggested, like, what did you think of this movie? And I was thankful once that switched, but this goes a step farther where it's like you don't want to pollute even your own account with non-relevant searches. Or sometimes you'll do a favor. For example, like somebody talks you into watching a Michael Moore documentary. You're like, ugh, fine, I'll watch it. And then all of a sudden it's all like, you love Michael Moore, don't you? I'm like, no.
Well, and the way we got around it, first of all, when they didn't have the accounts separated on streaming, it was Eileen always getting mad at me like, your suggestions are polluting all of the suggestions. But then once we were able to set up our separate streaming accounts, we set one up for Django the dog. And so anything we wanted to watch in incognito mode or privacy mode or whatever, we just watch on the Django account.
That's great.
Is there a way, I've never kind of dug through it, but is there a way to say, like, this thing is relevant to my suggestions, this thing is not relevant to my suggestions, and basically just X that title out?
Well, what it does, Netflix, the closest thing to that is the star rating system, where it does the predictor of, we think you'll like this, to the tune of 3.5 stars or whatever, and you can shape it by rating movies afterwards. But I got to tell you, I spent like a day giving my ratings for a bunch of previous movies, and the suggestions have been good. But like says, I don't rate anything nowadays, and I don't know how or why I stopped doing that.
I used to rate it when it was a DVD service all the time. I would have fun because I'd be going on managing my queue and I'd be like, ooh, I should rate some stuff. But now that I'm only accessing it through a Roku or a game console of some kind, it just never comes up. I mean, they do say that, like, wouldn't you like to rate this movie? I'd be like, no, I actually just want to watch what it was going to run. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, my take is, first of all, kudos to Netflix to realizing that this can go beyond your internet browsing. You're next, Amazon. I want to be able to buy stuff and not have it be even in my history or any of that stuff.
Right, because when you buy gifts, it just throws it in. Even though you're choosing gift wrap, like, it should know, like, oh, that was a gift.
Yeah. Or there might be things that you want to buy once and not be reminded of 2 years later that it's time to renew for X, Y, or Z. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're almost out of toner out of that printer, I bet. And it's like, even if you're right, I'm like, God, yes, you're right, but screw you for even knowing that. I just want to buy my toner. Leave me
You're
alone.
not the boss of me, Amazon.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
All right. Shall we gear up?
No, we should go to the front lines. No, under surveillance. No, we should gear up.
Yeah, I think we should gear up. Sling, speaking of Sling, has some new versions of their boxes. They used to have the 500 and the 350, and they've upgraded both of those now with new names and new features. The Sling M1 replaces the 350. Gets a price cut down to $150 and now has Wi-Fi built in on the cheaper version. The Sling TV is $300. That replaces the 500. It's got a new UI, snappier new UI with a new television guide that you can get for free. You don't have to pay a subscription for. Those are both coming to the 500 too in a future firmware update. And it adds in apps. HTML5 TV app compatible, although the only apps they have so far are Blockbuster VOD and Dishworld.
So I'm trying to figure out why I don't ever set up my Sling box, and I feel morally bad for not having done it. And I suspect
I judge you.
Well, I know you do. I mean, I have a Slingbox HD. My guess is, and you didn't mention this, I don't think, but my guess is that we're still not looking at simple HDMI pass-through because of the
for the
copyright.
Sling TV, yes, you have HDMI 5, and 500 had HDMI.
No, wait a
pass-through.
minute. But I thought the whole reason that they had to go to component was for like copy protection.
With the
stuff.
Slingbox 500, you can do HDMI pass-through, which I do. Occasionally, a particular channel will block that. So they say, we'd rather you, if you want full compatibility, do that. I don't know if that's changed on the Sling TV, although they are advertising HDMI pass-through. It does work.
I think, in all honesty, what it's going to take for me to get on is a Chrome, a Chromecast sized dongle that I basically attach to the end of my current HDMI cable and plug it right in there. I think that's how dumb and simple it'll have to be to get me to actually do it.
Veronica, do you guys use a Slingbox?
Yes, and I think the one feature they really need to add is keeping your significant other from changing the channel when you're slaying the Giants game, for example.
And incognito watching too. Throw that in there.
Would be great if you could. I mean, the problem is you can only send one signal through, right? It doesn't have multiple tuners. In fact, the Slingbox doesn't have a tuner at all. It's a dumb controller, which I
assume
like.
is
I want it to be
by nature,
yeah.
right?
It would be kind of cool for cord cutters if Slingbox went back to selling a version that had a tuner, like a TV tuner built in, which they used to do. But I get it. It's like, let's just make the cheapest version that just does what it does. And that's cool. But yeah, does that happen a lot with you, Veronica, where you're at home and all of a sudden your channel changes?
No, I'm the worst with it though.
Oh, you're
Ryan's the one who typically watches Giants games when he's out and about, and then I will go to watch television, and then I'll get a text message being like, "Duh, you changed the channel!"
Because it goes black.
I don't know.
when someone's logged in, and you're like, "What are they doing?"
And Tom, I know that's happened to you before as well. I've seen it happen.
Oh yeah, we were in a taco place once, and I did it to Eileen, and then she text messaged. Like, what are you doing?
Hey, man, while we have both of you here, Tom and Veronica, you guys together host the fantastic Sword and Laser program. And you guys released the Sword and Laser. Wait, what? Tom, would you stop reading?
I'm sorry, Brian. I thought you were going to do some kind of promotion or something.
Oh, well, I was going to promote the Sword and Laser anthology.
Oh, well, what a coincidence. That's just what I'd picked up to read during your promotion.
Oh, that's
the new Sword and Laser anthology.
All right, I have to ask, Veronica, what was your favorite thing, either about the creation of the Sword and Laser anthology, or is there a particular surprise story that impressed you the most?
No, I think it was really the whole process of just getting this thing out there into the world and having it be all written by fans of the show and you know and the response that we've gotten has been so great, and the discussions that I see happening between readers and the authors has been really wonderful to follow. So yeah, it was just a really rewarding experience to put it out into the world.
So where do people go to watch? Where do you like to point them to watch Sword and Laser or listen to Sword and Laser?
Oh, swordandlaser.com is the place that you can find everything there, and include the anthology. There's an anthology link at the top of the page, or you can go to swordandlaser.com/store and find the anthology there. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Nook, you can get it on Google Play. There's a DRM-free EPUB from Lulu. There's print versions. We also have fine T-shirts with dragons.
T-shirts of our faces on them.
Well, I mean, and this is the thing: is you know, if you like cord killers, if you like the fact that independent folks can make quality content on your dime, then support Sword and Laser. Throw them a few bucks, buy the anthology, wear a T-shirt, man.
Thank you, Brian, for promoting the thing that we did.
That unsolicited praise. That's my band's name.
Unsolicited Praise is my REM cover band. Now it's time for Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location.
Just my Rush cover band.
Under surveillance.
Would you like to have NFL's Sunday Ticket and you're a cord cutter who does not want to subscribe to cable? You can get it, maybe. They used to do this for anybody who lived in an apartment that couldn't get DirecTV. They've been doing it for a couple of years where they said, hey, we'll let you subscribe to NFL Sunday Ticket over the internet, but you have to prove that you live in a place that couldn't otherwise get DirecTV. Then last year they bundled it in with Madden. So if you bought the Madden video game, you could get it. And I did that just to test it out. It worked really well.
Really?
This year they're expanding it to New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. Any of the residents in those cities apparently can get it. And several universities, including UT Austin, Michigan, Florida, a few others. $200 for the package on the desktop and mobile. $240 on the game console, but doesn't get you desktop and mobile. And $330 if you want everything.
So how big a deal? Here's number one. This is great because obviously it's another way for people to get the content that they love. But I'm wondering the type of person who loves NFL content, are they the cord cutting type that need to tell a lie about this kind of thing?
Well, it's a big step to take if you want to become a cord killer and you're an NFL fan.
Sure.
This is going to help you make that step. Now, remember, you're still getting your local teams blacked out.
It's so weird.
Yeah, that's the bummer.
I hate it. I don't understand it.
But and I know that neither one of you are big NFL fans, but just thinking of it abstractly as like there's the person out there like, if I could get Sunday Ticket, this would be my jam.
Well, and that's actually not a bad thing to point out because, you know, you've said that you wanted to cut the cord for a long time. But in your case, Eileen has certain flavors of live television that she's just not willing to give up. And I believe in your case, it was like, HGTV, like Home and Garden stuff?
It was a little bit that. It was more like, but
way to call Eileen out. Jeez, Brian. She's got to have her HGTV.
When the finale of Walking Dead is on, I want to be on Twitter with everybody else watching it. And if I cut the cord, I can't do that.
Right. So my point is there's somebody out there, there's some scenario, whether it's a wife or a husband, who would take the jump but doesn't because they love the NFL so much. I think that's great.
Veronica, I mean, just in the abstract, what do you think about this idea? I think what's most interesting about this is the fact that they're saying anybody in these three cities. Now, if you're in Oakland, forget it, apparently. Outside of San Francisco, forget it. But if you're in the city of San Francisco, we'll let you do this without having to lie, without having to have special circumstances.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I don't care at all about NFL, but I know many people do, and that is important to them.
Why are they doing it this way?
Belmont.
That's what puzzles me.
I'm sorry. It sounded to me like you're asking for a sensible explanation for
nonsensical.
No,
but I know that's the knee-jerk response. But like, why pick three cities and not even the biggest three? It's Philadelphia, New York.
The short answer is to test out. It's like whenever you do a test case like this, you want it to be a big enough thing that you don't upset a lot of people with a policy change. You want to rattle the fewest cages and yet get the best result. So in that regard,
you pick a tech-savvy city.
Why would this rattle people?
Well, no, like we're rattling. Anytime you change anything, sponsors go totally nuts on that kind of stuff. You know, it's like they don't want to see any kind of change or any kind of like built-in agreement or whatever. It's like if your goal is to find out will this maximize our profits, then you never go with your biggest market for that kind of test thing. You go with the smaller ones on the side like this.
Although in this case, DirecTV is working against their own interests. They are the objectors to this being a cord-cutting thing, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the ones paying the NFL in order to resell it because they want to bring people on and become regular subscribers. So when they allow you to pay for the NFL Sunday Ticket online with no other subscription, they're saying, we're going to give up selling you that $90 a month subscription that we would otherwise make you take.
I mean, as long as you couch it in your mind as an experiment, then I, whatever. My guess is they're not doing anything without a reason. I assume they got somebody somewhere who.
Well, sure, yeah, no, I figured that too. I'm just curious I was trying to tease out what that reason is because I guess what they're trying to calculate. This could be part of the experiment is how much does it actually hurt our subscription numbers? How much does it in fact undermine if we let this happen? Let's pick three different types of markets. A big sports fan market in Philadelphia, a big tech-savvy market in San Francisco, just a big market in New York City. Run the numbers after this season and find out, Did it really hurt, or did it give us new leads that we could then market for some kind of subscription?
I mean, hopefully they will discover that there's an amazing,
and then AT&T
magical
will
one.
buy them, and that'll be the end of that.
Sorry. That's the real problem, right? Is like you do all this tinkering, you get something that actually works, and the definition of success is that somebody comes along to ruin it.
Yeah.
So hopefully someone will come along to ruin this.
It is time for the front lines.
Yeah, front lines.
Front lines.
I just said that. You can't repeat me.
He totally repeated you. Ripped you off, Brian. Veronica, do you understand how our Frontline segment works? Wait, hold that clock.
I don't.
Okay, so we have 6 other stories that we figure are worth knowing about, but we don't have that much to say about them. So we give ourselves 60 seconds to talk about each one. Are you ready?
Okay.
Starting off, Microsoft shutting down Xbox Entertainment Studios, thus shutting down our ongoing debate about its purpose. You'll still get projects currently in production, including the new Halo series. Does this make you sad, Veronica?
It does, and they're laying off so many people. I mean, there's like 18,000 people losing their jobs at Microsoft in the next coming months, and that's kind of a big deal, but it also kind of needed to be done because they're a very bloated company. But hopefully all the games that are in production, as you say, will still be coming out and be awesome.
So this, of course, was one of our heated debates where I felt like this was an inordinately expensive way to give fan service, whereas you felt like this was the kind of thing that would entice people to buy into the Xbox ecosystem. Veronica, which do you think it was? Not that it matters since it's going downhill.
Wait, what is the debate?
The debate was, I said, no, they're not going to sell a single more Xbox for having this original content. They're just going to make people who already own it feel better. That was my point.
I don't really understand the question.
Apparently, Satya Nadella agreed with Brian.
That's fine. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
QPlay, the streaming clip service that launched in February, will close down next Friday. Man, we have a depressing run of stories here. QPlay was the one where people could tweet over, and then you would have a lean back experience.
Yeah, like I had
clips.
a Justin Robert Young channel. Any video that he put on Twitter would show up in the Justin Robert Young channel, and they would just autoplay.
And you bought the QPlay, right?
I bought the QPlay device to try it out, yeah, because a bunch of fans were like, QPlay is the future of television. But guess what? QPlay is not the future of television.
Well, it's the past already because it got canceled. Did you like it? Are you sad?
I really liked the service. You didn't need the dongle. That was just a way to get people to try it. But I did like the idea of it. I never went back and used it, though. So
what about you, Veronica?
No problem.
Did you ever try it?
I've never even heard of it.
So
do you want a lean back web video experience? I mean, that's what they were trying to sell you.
No.
And there you go.
That's apparently what the world said as well.
That's the end of QPlay. Sorry, QPlay. It was the TiVo founders that did it too. That is the end of that. Boom. International 2014, which is the biggest Dota 2 video game tournament of the year, is getting coverage tonight on ESPN2 in the U.S. at 8:30 Pacific as a preview. And then the finals are Monday, and you can stream those on Watch ESPN.
Dude, this is huge. I love the idea. I think that the burgeoning esports phenomenon is fantastic. I think it is a skill-based it's every bit as much of a sport as chess is. And in fact, I remember 20 or 30 years ago when USA Today was covering Kasparov versus whoever, they put it in the sports section because it's not a novelty. It's a competitive aspect. You know, it's at least as athletic as golf. So
it's a sport. It's a sport where people compete and people like to watch it.
Yeah.
And it's getting some major
Awesome.
attention.
Will you watch this on television, Veronica?
No.
Now, is that because you
it's
don't like
awesome.
Dota or because you don't think it belongs on TV?
I just wouldn't watch it. I don't watch anything on TV except Giants.
Yeah. 21st Century Fox offered $80 billion to buy Time Warner, who coyly said no. Time Warner is not Time Warner Cable, of course, but rather it's made up of HBO, Turner Networks, and Warner Films. So this is a content acquisition play. When you say coyly said no, Tom, how did they say no and wink?
It sounds like from all the stories that Time Warner said no, but Fox isn't giving up, and there's now talk about who should acquire Time Warner. Because remember, there's no more time in Time Warner. They got rid of the publishing arm. That's just a legacy name now, and so it's ripe for acquisition, apparently.
But apparently, 80 million or 80 billion.
80
was
million,
not
not enough. Yeah.
80 billion.
80 billion. Still,
Wow.
you know what's cooler than 80 million?
80 trillion.
80 trillion is enough.
That's right.
I would accept that
I'm
offer.
done.
Zillion.
I'm okay with 80 trillion. I say we just jump on to the next stories.
Yes, Marvel announced release dates for 6 films between 2017 and 2019, all of them part of a series called Untitled. apparently. What is this Untitled franchise, Brian?
You know what? I'm looking at it right now. Untitled. Okay, so it starts off 2015. You got the Avengers: Age of Ultron. You got Ant-Man.
Those are the ones we already knew.
Right.
Yeah.
2016, Captain America 3 and Doctor Strange. 2017, Untitled.
So the point here is they put out dates and didn't tell us what movies are coming.
You know what this is? This is them peeing on that territory. This is not a press release for us. This is a press release for the rest of Hollywood to know.
We're going to stomp you on these dates.
Exactly.
We're being nice
Yes.
and telling you ahead of time.
Exactly.
Stay out of our month of our big release that is yet untitled.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, obviously we'll see more of the same, right? We'll see more Avengers-ish Thor.
Captain America. I forgot. I was talking to Jason Murphy about this recently. And it's like, what I would love to see is a story that doesn't start with an origin story. I would love to just come in.
No, origin stories are the best.
No, I'm done with them. Just how great to like, for example, I'll use an extension on this if we're just going to hypothesize about future movies. For example, the Doctor Strange thing. I'm sure it's going to be another thing where like he was a scientist who decided to explore the occult. Well, the occult is like science. Oh, I've uncovered Mephisto in epic battle. Now I'm Doctor Strange. How great to just have a character introduced like this is the 18 billionth time he's fought this demon.
Like they did with Wolverine. And then they went back and
did Wolverine Origins
an origin
story. That's my thing.
Well, that's fine. Do it later.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Like sometimes it's cool to get introduced to the character and wonder about his origin. So when the origin movie comes out, you're really excited.
Exactly. Well, and that's what they did. You're right. In X-Men, the way you got introduced to Wolverine is he's winning a bar bets, for a bare knuckle fight. Like he just doesn't care and he's an alcoholic slouch. I love that. Let's have a movie where where it immediately starts with that. But you disagree, Veronica?
And I'll use my extension on this.
No, I think origin stories are always my favorite, so I enjoy them.
So you didn't mind the fact that we went back and watched the same origin story for Spider-Man, like only a decade after the first
I stopped watching those.
You what?
I stopped watching those. I have not seen any of the new Spider-Man.
What?
Spider-ist men. Guaranteed one of those movies is going to be Avengers 3.
Oh, sure.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. And man, I wonder if they're actually even planned. Like, for example...
Oh, they know what titles they're going to go with.
I don't know, though. They might... Like, I could see a world where near the end, like 2016, they're all like, okay, well, these will be kind of floaters. If Doctor Strange does really well, that's where we'll put the
I could see them leaving a couple options open, which is why they wanted to call them Untitled. But I'm sure Avengers 3, they know what date that's going
on. Yes, I do believe that as well. All right, I'm going to get a jump on the next story. Netflix performance on Verizon dropped 13 to 17% from May to June in the U.S., but of course the two are still implementing their agreement for a direct interconnect. What's up with that photo of a diagram that's floating around?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that last week,
right?
And Level 3 responded to that this week. And essentially, if you're not caught up, Verizon says the interconnection is congested because Netflix shoves all of their content through this one interconnection that they have a contract for when they could buy other ones. It's not our fault. And then Level 3 came back and said, sure, they buy that connection from us. And yes, they could pay more money to go through another interconnection, or you, Verizon, could upgrade this screaming interconnection between the two of us, which we've offered to pay for the equipment to do. And then Verizon comes back and goes, oh, sure, pay for the equipment, but you're not going to pay the ongoing cost of the unbalanced ratio that you're going to give us, which is a totally valid complaint. What is going on here is a negotiation between three companies that would normally happen behind scenes and in boardrooms, and instead they're doing it in the press. And you know what? You lose, no matter who wins. You will pay more because of this. There is no side for you in this.
Man, I feel like we should just end on that rant. I think we're done.
Let's move on to the movie draft. Congratulations to Amtrekker, who has all but wrapped this baby up. We'll talk about. There's a couple of scenarios that could play out.
Yeah.
But he has jumped ahead $651 million to DTNS's $575 million, as we just nudge right in front of TMS for a brief period. TMS at 574. But yeah, these Planes, Fire and Rescue got 18 million. The Purge Anarchy, which was Slash Films, got 28 million. And Sex Tape, which was DTNS, has got 15 million. That Planes movie was TMS. None of that is going to be enough to catch Amtrekker. TMS has Get On Up coming out. Slash Film has Hercules and Guardians of the Galaxy. The problem is Slash Film is at 229 million. So Guardians of the Galaxy and Hercules would have to make more than 430 million between them. That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
TMS could catch Amtrekker, who's probably going to get another 30 million or so out of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. But Get On Up's going to have to way overperform, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, even for Team Night Attack, we're at 432 million right now to Amtrekker's 651 and climbing. I'm going to say that Amtrekker's going to even out at around 680, maybe 690, which means that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let's say we were able to drift upward 20 more million from Transformers, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would have to do $230 million. And
it would have to outgross Transformers.
Yeah, no, that's I'll tell you what, man, congratulations, Team Amtrekker. He bought a lot of crap that was just sitting on the floor, and I don't think he even has one major blockbuster.
Maleficent made 228 million.
But even then, we didn't perceive it as a blockbuster when we were making the draft. We thought Million Ways to Die in the West would have been, but it ended up taking a crap for that. Well, I mean, Justin and I did.
What did you say, Bree?
What about The Fault in Our Stars? He has that one.
Well, what's funny is during the draft, that just for whatever reason slipped underneath the radar for everyone. Nobody acted like it was going to be a big deal.
We thought Team DTNS, The Fault in Our Stars, had a shot, but it was such a long shot that it wasn't really worth doubling down on. It made 121 million. Maleficent outgrossed Transformers.
Yeah,
and I just thought that was going to flop.
Well, and again, it's the crazy thing was that there had never been a Transformers movie that made less than 300 million until now.
Yeah.
So it was a big bomb, and of course he did get The Fault in Our Stars is the number one best value. Number one worst value right now, Sex Tape.
Thanks, Brian.
Sorry, just in your face.
Oh, just take some of that and just rub it all over my nose.
I'm sharing information. Hey,
it's just information.
How about we move on to to what's on screen?
Yes, let's do that.
What are you watching, Tom?
Well, we'll talk about The Leftovers on It's Spoiler in Time, but I'm still enjoying that. I watched episode 9 of season 2 of The Shield. I'll have a lot to say about that on Spoiler in Time. Both Brian and I caught up on Orange is the New Black, almost all the way. And I watched 8 Weird Al videos. Well, actually 7. He hasn't released the 8th yet on YouTube. Did you hear what he was doing?
No. It sounds like the Beyonce model, though.
He's got a new album out. It's on sale. And over the past 7 days, he's released a new video every day for one of the tracks on the album on a different platform. So it's been on Funny or Die one day, and then the next day it'll be on College Humor, and the next day on Vivo, and the next day on Nerdist. And they're great, too. He's at the top of his game.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all great. Word Crimes is my favorite so far.
Those word crimes.
No, although
So
I keep
good.
thinking about frame rate the entire time right now on frame rates. What have you been watching, Veronica?
I finished Orange also, and that was pretty good. Not as good as season 1, but I still really enjoyed it. And I've also been looking forward to catching up on Sailor Moon Crystal on Hulu, which I'm really excited about because I was a huge Sailor Moon fan when I was a kid, and I really want to see them with better English translations than the originals that I saw.
And then when's the new one coming?
It is already out.
That is the new one that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was already out.
Which one?
is.
Sailor Moon new.
Oh, yeah, dude, that's off my radar.
Yeah.
I had ramen today. That's as close to Japan.
It's kind of on my radar because I know so many people like Veronica and my sister-in-law who are very excited about it, but I thought it was still yet to premiere. So you can get it on Hulu, though. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And a lot of people I know actually did the English voice, like Liam O'Brien did some of the voice acting for it. Tara Platt. So a lot of people that I know worked on it also. So I think that's really cool.
Awesome. So you did mention The Leftovers. Did you mention that?
I did.
Okay, good.
the first thing I mentioned.
I just watched the new Leftovers. And of course, wait. You don't like it? Did you watch? We'll talk about this later. Save it for a spoiler.
Did you watch Leftovers?
The first episode.
That's it?
Okay, all right. We'll talk about this later on. We'll spoil it for you. I watched Snowpiercer on video on demand. I think Jason picked up the Blu-ray. It's still in movie theaters in the United States. I believe we watched the American release. It's the weirdest thing because it's a Korean film that was shot in Prague or some Eastern European city, has Chris Evans as the lead, and Ed Harris shows up, and there's some other famous names on there as well. It's about all of human society. They tried to fight global warming by releasing a chemical to make it cooler, ended up freezing the planet. So the only people alive are people who constantly circle the globe on a train, and the rich live up front and the poor live in the back, and there's a revolution.
Why does being on a train save you from?
Okay, this is what I thought. I'm like, this is the dumbest premise I've ever heard. And Jason had the best phrase to set it up. He's like, go into it thinking it's a Twilight Zone episode. And the moment he said that, I'm like, all right, sure, I'll buy it. People on a train. And I will say this is a minor spoiler, that over the course in the first like half hour or so, it becomes clear that they didn't pile humanity onto a train because it was a good idea. The crazy people got on a train and everyone else happened to die. So now the crazy people stay on this train
because they're like,
because it keeps going. Yeah. And the idea is like the
so
train
well.
makes one lap around the world every year. So every time they cross like the Straits of Gibraltar, that happens to be New Year's Eve. And so they count it down or whatever.
Wait, who built tracks all the way around?
What you know what? We'll talk about this in spoiler in time. But I will say that I'm glad I watched it. I didn't expect to like it at all. But wait, now you want to watch it?
I might, yeah.
All right, well, then
I'm intrigued.
We'll save it.
I love myself some disaster porn, so I'm already in.
I mean, that's the weird part is you only see the after effects of
that's
disaster
great.
porn.
That's what I love.
Okay, and this is the other thing. I
love seeing stuff
this is a
blow
Korean-made
up,
movie, and there's only one character who speaks Korean, and he's a crazy person, and he only speaks in Korean.
And no one else can understand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, or it's like imagine if Star Wars was a Huttese production, but only one character happened to be a Hutt, and he only had like 12 lines that were subtitled in English. That's what this felt like to me.
Well, that's your entree as a Korean viewer into the film. It's like, oh, that's my character that I identify with.
Right.
Does this sound about right? J.C. Calhoun says Snowpiercer is like BioShock set on the train from Hunger Games with set dressing by the Annie movie. That isn't a compliment.
First of all, it's 100% right, and it's not a compliment, but it should be, because there's a lot that I found redeeming about the movie. And again, it's not high art, it's not great, but I'm really glad that I watched it.
Well, I think it's time now for some very elegant dispatches, and they come from the front.
I want some dirty, filthy, saucy dispatches.
Now, look, they're very...
Those are elegant.
Yeah. Urbane.
Taylor writes us, hey, Tom, Brian, and guest. I assume he miswrote Veronica. Recently, we had to cancel our Comcast. We had a family problem that required it. Rather than call on the phone, though, we packed...
Don't bring that up around Veronica.
She's sensitive about it. All right, I just lost my thing right here.
Recently, we packed up all our equipment.
Yeah, in fact, you finish it while I try to fix this.
I put the wires into a separate bag, went to our local Comcast office. We have a receipt to prove we returned everything, despite actually saying we no longer wanted the service, signing documents to that effect. We got a bill for $800. Never mind that our bill had been paid and we canceled the service. The very next week, we got a letter from a collection agency. Then about a month after we canceled and had returned the equipment, Comcast physically sent a worker to our house to collect the equipment. Upon offering to show the receipt of return to him, he merely said no thanks and left. Okay, well, this is the kind of thing where it's like, I want some verification before I pass along.
So this is the thing. You have not signed a contract with Comcast or any cable company that says that you have to explain to them why you no longer want the service. And I've had people tell me that they said that their grandmother had died. A guy at the farmer's market yesterday recognized me from the Comcast thing and started talking about the situation and said that his grandmother had died and Comcast wanted to see a death certificate.
What?
And it is like, you don't have to show them that. That is not their business, and you do not have a contract with Comcast. You need to negate.
This guy was claiming they wanted to see a death certificate to cancel the service?
Yes. This is, someone told me this in person.
Now, keep in mind, here's what I suspect is going on. I think it is the kind of thing where it's like, it's not official policy that they have to do it. My guess is that in the corporate training, they say, hey, we really don't like to see customers go. your job is to do your own personal best to keep them with the company. And then with that as a directive, you end up with people who handle things poorly and say things like, well, I'm going to need to see that death certificate.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
and
no.
also with all of these stories, one, you have to remember there may be another side. There may be a missing bit of information. I'm not saying I don't believe Taylor here.
Right.
But did he have the receipt? He says he had the receipt. Did they really refuse to see the receipt? Without having Comcast's side of the story, I'm a little hesitant to jump in on anybody's side to begin with, because we
The
don't
collection
know
agency thing has come up time and time again.
Yeah.
Also, with people responding to our situation, people saying that they had things go to collections because even though they said they canceled the service, they didn't actually cancel the service and they sent it right to collections.
Yeah.
So,
Or maybe they lost the receipt and they're like, well, we don't believe you canceled it then, right? Or whatever.
Right.
For the equipment. Taylor says he had the receipt. If he had the receipt, then he should have been able to resolve this. And I want to know more about this story.
Right.
Like, because you run into libel and slander issues if you're not careful.
Well, I mean, I don't know though. It is a fact that
You're just taking Taylor's word for it. We don't even know who Taylor is.
Well, yeah, but yeah, exactly. Like, but we are accurately reporting what a person's claim is. This is Taylor's claim.
But I don't want to draw any conclusions from that.
Whatever, man. Set fire to in the industry. I hate cable. What it be, Cord Killers? This is from Kenneth. I've been a fan of the show since its previous incarnation. I think we may have the answer to the world's oldest questions. More specifically, why companies don't want to buy ads based on actual demographics that can be verified instead of using the old school method of buying ads on shows that are assumed to target said demographics. I recently read an article on how car manufacturers always claim to be targeting 20-somethings, both publicly and privately, when they know full well that the median age of new car buyers is 52 to 53. No matter what company or what car, the audio industry strategy. Apparently, even BMW, Mercedes, Rolls-Royce market to 20-year-olds because 40 and 50-year-olds who will buy the car want to believe they're still young. Ever see an old guy in a Cadillac commercial? And my answer to that is yes, Bob Dylan. Talking about Cadillacs. Think about it. By this logic, a show that actually hits the 20-something demo but isn't perceived as hitting said demo is worthless to the advertiser, where a show that's perceived as hitting it is gold regardless of who actually watches it. I believe this holds true, at least as a strategy across the board, and explains why, even though the middle age and up demo spends the most money, all the marketing is aimed at 20-somethings. Once again, love the show. I got to tell you, it's I don't buy it either. No. because if the point is that you want to reach a target demographic, nobody knows. Like if the guy's 52, there's nothing. He could be watching Perry Grip videos like an 8-year-old, but the correct ads will be targeting him if they buy the demographics. So I think it's a good idea. I don't buy it.
I think Kenneth has got a point that the reason you don't see old people in commercials as often, Bob Dylan being the exception, is because the people who have the disposable income want to think of themselves as younger.
Right.
I think that's perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean they go so far as to say, and therefore we don't want the people with the disposable income in the audience. Of course they do. They want the message to reach the people who can afford to spend the money on the thing.
Right.
The reason that they don't go after the verified audience is that they don't believe it's there. They just don't believe it's there in big enough numbers.
They don't believe
and they're not going to get fired for buying on Nielsen numbers versus, we tried a campaign on this smaller website and it didn't work.
That is the heart of it right there. You're not going to get fired. I've
for buying IBM.
Freakonomics Radio just recently did an amazing podcast where they talked about decision making and how people make moves in business, thinking about how it will not in order to make the bottom line work, but in order to have something that they can justify after the fact. And they talked about all these companies that are wasting money on television ads, but they know that if they buy ads at Christmas and Thanksgiving during heavy buying times, they'll see a spike in purchases afterwards, and they'll be able to justify like, well, that was clearly a good call, when secretly that's just when they sell the most stuff anyway.
By the way, Chimera pointed out a reason that you might want a death certificate to cancel service is because they need proof of identity. And if you're like, no, I'm not the person who holds the account, they're going to be like, well, okay. I
mean, I guess
I'm not going to cancel somebody. Otherwise, I could call up anybody and be like, yeah, Brian died. Cancel his account.
Yeah, this is why you do everything through credit cards, because then you could just change your credit card number and then they can't keep charging it. And you're like, screw you.
Yeah. We got Brian Drake writing in, says, okay, Schwood, I love you. All right, that's very nice. Thank you for writing in.
That's the end of the letter.
There's more. There's
That's
more.
the
There's
end
more.
of the letter.
There's
No
more
need
here.
to read on, Tom.
I love the podcast, but your I refuse to invest in a TV show that I know was prematurely canceled attitude has got to go. If someone were to offer to introduce you to Buzz Aldrin, Christopher Lee, or Stephen Hawking, would you say, the heck with that? They're probably going to die soon. Oh, man, that's awful.
That got dark.
I don't want to
I want
be
to say this is a
invested.
totally fair argument.
I don't want to be invested in a friendship with them when I know it's only going to bring me pain. No, of course not. You'd scream like a little girl and embrace them heartily. Really excellent TV shows should be treated the same way.
And he goes on to explain a whole bunch of different shows that I really ought to check out. Understand, if I had, I am not advocating my perspective as the right way. What I'm saying is that, my time is so tight to begin with, and on top of that, like I mean, if I had the time, I would watch everything and I would give everything its due. But I am acknowledging the reality of how I act, not suggesting that this is a right way to go about it.
You're acknowledging that you buy IBM so you won't get fired.
Yes.
Not that it makes sense.
Exactly.
Do you do this, Veronica? Do you not? Because I will watch a show even if I know it didn't finish its run sometimes.
It depends on how I hear it ended. If it's one of those shows that had, say, like, Lindelof ending, I'll probably just bypass the whole thing. But if it's something where they're like, no, it was before its time, but they did a really good job of wrapping it up, I'd be like, okay, I'll give that a shot. And plus, it makes it less intense because whenever you start a new show, especially if it's already done, you have like, oh man, I've got like 6 seasons of the show to get through. That can be a little daunting. But if you're like, okay, 2 seasons, I can manage that.
I guess if it's a show that really depends on getting to the ending, and they're like, no, you're never going to get the ending. Then I might not. But Twin Peaks is a great example. They never resolved the second mystery. They resolved one of the mysteries, but they didn't resolve the second one they set up. And they said they would do it in a sequel movie, and they only ever made a prequel movie.
Well, and understand,
I still would say watch Twin Peaks.
Well, sure. In a vacuum, either watch it or don't watch it. Of course, watch it. But the problem is it's not in a vacuum. It's, should I watch Twin Peaks coming in knowing that I got cut off early, or should I see Battlestar Galactica for the first time?
Well, okay, yeah. But Twin Peaks would rank really high for me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, in the library, there's enough that I thought you were telling me to snap it up. Do.
By the way, new Blu-ray has a bunch of deleted scenes from Fire Walk with Me that apparently like shed light on the ending.
Right on.
Of Twin Peaks.
Last one, Bill Shields says that he tried the Chicken Challenge and AT&T reduced his bill by $50 and doubled their internet speed when he asked to cancel. He says they're glad that they finally went for it. And we encourage all of you guys to try the Chicken Challenge.
And vaginalfantasy.com are my book club shows. So come, read science fiction and fantasy with me.
To do the pitching for the show, Brian.
Oh, God, of course you are. Hey, if you guys want to write them.
Cord Killers.
A good save, though. I fixed it last second.
Kick save, Brian Brushwood. Cordkillers.com, cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you, folks.